I would like to encourage everybody to think of how they can be a positive voice in all that is going on. So excited to share more so that we can all become leaders to creating more equitable workforces. It's a big part of my work that I do at FindSpark, and I think everybody can contribute. I also recommend turning off other devices, closing out other windows, and just grabbing a pen and paper if you haven't already, so you're fully here and invested in what's going on. Sharing on social media. This is a great opportunity to post on social media about what you are doing. So of course, there's some great hashtags. You can tag AMA. And also with COVID, just recognizing that we are in the same boat, that it's okay to be disappointed. Things are changing so quickly. No one has all the answers, but I like to take a positive approach. And I think that everything that I would teach in my workshops before COVID are just even more important now, because the job market is about to get so competitive. It's going to be more important than ever to build and maintain a strong network and support system for yourself, and make sure that you're putting yourself out there so that people can help you more easily. All right, so what should you be thinking about when it comes to your online presence? So does your online presence best reflect your past, your present, and what you want to do in the future? So things that you need to keep in mind: are people aware of your goals, your relevant experience? So for instance, those of you who might be transitioning to a new career path should reflect on, is the way you're positioning your experience help present you for what you want to do in the future? Making sure you're actively sharing not just sort of the day-to-day, but the accomplishments and the results and the things that you're really proud of, and of course what makes you different. And part of that are those accomplishments, but a big part of that is also what do you care about, and what just makes you different and unique as a person. And this goes for your networking pitch and your online application. So keeping these 4 bullets in mind are really important. And so what can your online presence do for you? That will be the focus of my presentation. So you can become discoverable, right? You want your profiles to get found by people who are looking for your talent, looking for your skills. You want to use it to grow your network. So, everyone is in the same boat now, and will be for a while, with there being limited in-person, face-to-face interaction. So this is a good time to get out of your comfort zone and become more open to networking with people who, you haven't met prior and are just meeting online, and that's it. And then of course, being able to use your personal brand in these profiles to actually maintain your network, so to stay in touch with people on a wide scale once you bring them into that network. So the very first place that you want to start when you're thinking about your online presence is your bios, right? Your headlines, your social media bios, whether it's on Instagram or LinkedIn or Twitter. And I'm just curious, I would love to see in the chat everybody type which platforms they're interested in using professionally. So I'm sure everybody's going to type in LinkedIn, but I'm curious if people have other platforms they're interested in exploring, and how they can use them in a more professional way, or professional and personal. So Instagram and Twitter are of course other 2 big ones, especially within the marketing world. Facebook is a place that you can use as a more professional tool. And actually, I don't talk too much about Facebook in here, but what I would recommend for Facebook is that everybody look for some professional Facebook groups. I believe that Facebook groups are the most useful part of Facebook right now, and maybe one of the only super useful parts of it. I think most people are still using Facebook, mainly personally, but these groups, and you can really search anything, women in advertising, lesbians in tech. There's all these different identity groups, or groups that are just based around industries or locations. So do a quick search and look for some groups you can join professionally to network and find jobs. So what are people learning about you just from your bio, right? So a little formula I like to use that's easy to remember is what you're doing, what you've done, and something fun. easy to remember because it rhymes, right? So what are you currently doing? What are some of the major things you've done in the past? And share something a bit fun about you. So again, what are your interests? What are you passionate about specifically within what you're trying to do next? And one of the most important things you can do right now is make it really easy for people to see what you are looking for next, right? And so one of basic ways you can do that, for instance, is with your LinkedIn headline. So you might want to consider explicitly stating that you are seeking your next opportunity, that you are open for freelance work. That is really helpful for people to know right off the bat, because that LinkedIn headline is the first thing that people are going to see when they see your profile in a search or when you go to connect with them on LinkedIn. So your headline is really important. And most people, for their headline, all they put is their current job. And that is a mistake. You can actually fit a lot into the character limitations of a headline. So consider that same formula of what you're doing, what you've done in something fun. And also a fairly new feature of LinkedIn is that you can specifically on the back end of your settings say what sort of opportunities that you're open for. And you can see here I highlighted it in red. That's something that people, you can determine who can see what you're open for. And so you can make it a privacy setting where only recruiters or people with LinkedIn Recruiter will be able to see that you're open for opportunities. So for instance, if you're trying to leave your current employer, LinkedIn will actually make it so your current employer's recruiters can't see that you're saying you're open for opportunities, but you want to be really clear. And because so many people are going to be on the job market, the more specific you can be about what you're looking for, the better. It's a little scary to do that because you might feel like you're limiting yourself from other opportunities. But again, because it's going to be so competitive, you really want to hone in on what you're going to be the best fit for and what type of opportunity you want. Other things to include, so things like leadership, right? Leadership is a great differentiator, and there's all different types of leadership ways that can kind of play out. So are you including that in your LinkedIn, in the content that you're posting? So for instance, I'm sure many of you are involved in leadership in AMA. Where is that throughout your LinkedIn profile? So there are actually sections for things like this, but you can also include them in more prominent places like your summary. Also, volunteerism is a great thing to talk about. Again, there's specific sections on LinkedIn where you can talk about your volunteer activities, and you can just list places where you volunteer, but you can also get into more details about what type of impact you've had in a volunteer role. In the same way, you can put more details about the impact you've had at a paid, official role. Also, LinkedIn is a great place to talk about things that you've brought to life on your own accord, right? Outside projects. So for instance, this person does sales planning at Disney, but they also put together a benefit concert. And they talked about how much money they raised and how many pounds of non-perishable food that they raised. This is a really cool thing to do to highlight. And if you're in between work, it's a great example of, can you create some sort of opportunity or program or do something, useful for other people during this time that you're in between work that will show off what you're passionate about, but also show that you're staying busy, you're working on your skills. And you can put projects on your LinkedIn, as you can see this person, and actually tag other people. So you can tag other people who you've worked on that particular project with, which is a nice way to shout out your colleagues and people you've worked with. And your online presence is a place where you want to talk about the things that you are most proud of. And you can get creative with how you're showing these things. It can be things like rich media on your LinkedIn. This is actually a pinned tweet. So on Twitter, of course, as you post more and more, your tweets will get pushed down into your timeline, but you can have a pinned tweet as well. And so that's a great place on Twitter to put something that you're especially proud of. This person talked about being nominated for an award. The great thing about Twitter is that you can also tag other people, right? So not only is he talking about himself, but he is tagging other people who worked with him, on this programming and were a part of receiving this award. So pinned tweets and posting content when you are have done something fantastic is of course something that you want to do. And also talking about side projects, businesses, things that you've started from scratch. These are excellent things to include on your online presence because they show that you're going beyond the normal 9 to 5. Or again, if you're in between work, this is a moment to see, can you get some clients, whether that's family and friends, helping out other people, or creating projects from scratch for yourself. Anything from launching an Etsy account and selling, creative work to, for instance, something that I've done throughout this period of COVID is my aunt and uncle own a very small theater up in Vermont that is pretty much continuously struggling and had to shut down because of COVID. So over the last couple of months, I helped my aunt and uncle launch a Patreon account for their theater to raise money for their theater to keep the theater going. So, can you find a small business or a family member who is struggling and use your marketing skills to help them during this time? And when you do something like that, it's absolutely something you should include and talk about. It doesn't have to be things that you're only officially getting paid for. So entrepreneurial projects are excellent to include. And so going beyond just, what are you putting on your profile? Of course, that's all really important, like the sort of stagnant content or the static content that should not be stagnant, right? You want to be frequently updating things. What I like to do, really simple, I have a monthly calendar alert on my Google Calendar because I don't know about you all, but I live by my Google Calendar that just says update social media profiles. So once a month, I get a GCal alert that just reminds me to think about, hey, is there something new I can add to my profile? Do I want to update some content? Do I have a new accomplishment? So I would encourage you, whatever way you run your to-do list, to put some sort of reminder like that so that your profiles don't become so outdated that updating them can become overwhelming. Right? These are something you want to be updating on in a sort of constant, consistent way. So what type of posts should you be creating to build your online presence? So number one is being helpful. I think being helpful is the best way to network. So sharing resources that you find helpful are most likely going to be helpful for your network. So when you find these helpful things, articles or videos or resources, take a moment to stop and pause and post about them and share them. Share what you are already consuming. I'm sure you're already reading news and blogs and even other people's posts. So just resharing and taking a minute to share that content, again, that integrating it into your sort of daily or weekly flow. Giving people shout outs is also huge. So what is one of the first things that you all do when you sign on to a social media channel? Just curious if anyone wants to share in the chat. What's the first thing you do when you open your app or you open up LinkedIn on your screen? What would you say is the first thing you click? First thing you do? Anyone? Notifications. Yes, Anastasia. Okay, messages, notifications. So, right, everyone wants to see that little red dot that says someone has acknowledged my existence, right? We can't deny that red dot. So, give other people shout outs, right? So when you're posting, always think about, is there someone I can tag in this post because they wrote it or they'd be interested in it, or I found it because of them, or you're just thanking someone for doing a good job or giving someone kudos. It's an incredible thing to do, to work into your schedule, to build up your network and create some social media karma, right? And of course, just also posting updates about your work and experiences, new skills that you're learning, projects that you're working on, and that sort of thing. So here's an example, when you get hired, talking about the people who helped you throughout that hiring process is always a really nice thing to do. And on the opposite side, posting about when you are leaving a job as well, giving people shout outs. I'm sure many of you have had your LinkedIn filled up with people talking about that, they've lost their job because of COVID. If it's something that you feel uncomfortable doing, that of course is totally normal. But if it helps you feel like it's more normal, I mean, so many people are doing it because so many people are going through it. And I hope that a long-term, sort of effect of COVID-19 is that people do feel like they could be more vulnerable in asking for help and support and during rough times. So those types of posts. Also finding opportunities, hashtags, things that are happening on the internet already and becoming a part of them, right? So for instance, there is a thing called Portfolio Day. It is a hashtag that is active on Instagram and Twitter. I discovered it because I teach at School of Visual Arts with a lot of animators and designers and creatives, and it happens like the second Tuesday every other month or something like that. But basically it's an opportunity for people to share their work, and it's something where when on that day when it's happening, a lot of people are doing it. It's a great way to get discovered and to discover other people. So think about your industry and pay attention to these sort of online hashtags or things that are happening, and insert yourself into those conversations. And I really liked this post as an example. This is a member of the FindSpark community who, at the point when I screenshotted, was looking for a full-time job as a recent graduate. And she actually is talking about how she's very uncomfortable talking about herself and with attention online. And she calls herself a shy extrovert here. That in-person situation, she's more comfortable being a leader, but online it makes her a little uncomfortable. And so she's basically saying how she's recognizing that and pushing herself outside of her comfort zone to share some of the work that she's doing. And here she did it as a LinkedIn article. So creating a LinkedIn article, which is essentially like a blog post, is a great way to share more content, more in-depth content with your network on LinkedIn. It's different from a post on your feed. A post on your feed, there's a character limit, but if you're creating an article on LinkedIn, there's much more room there, and it also is a little bit more sort of prominent on your profile. So again, everybody is in this situation where so much networking is happening online, and even if you're in a city where you feel like phase 1, 2, or 3, whatever it is with COVID is going to happen sooner than others, there's still going to be limited face-to-face networking. So now is a time to explore ways that you'll feel more comfortable putting content out there and talking about yourself and talking online, because everybody's in the same boat. Now, Instagram is a really great place to be, a platform to use if you're into the creative world, and that creative is broad, so everything from marketing to advertising to design. Maybe you want to be doing marketing in an industry that's a more creative place. So I really love Instagram stories, for instance, as a place to shout out other people. As mentioned, I think giving shout outs to other people in your network is a great way to build a strong brand, a brand that says, hey, these are other people who I believe in or who I know. So these are some examples here. So for instance, this is a story highlight. This is one of my students. She's incredible. But so she did a story highlight where she just shouted out all of her not all, but a bunch of her peers, her students who also finished their thesis projects. So, as students, you will have these big projects. And so can you shout out these people? So she did this whole story where, you can see there's about 10 different posts there. And then she made that a story highlight on her Instagram. So that always stays at the top. She's got a highlight that says, my peers. And even just having a story highlight that says, I'm shouting out my peers, it's nice, right? And it says something about you. Instagram stories and Twitter are also great ways to post when you're at virtual events and in-person events as well. But this next screenshot here is an example. So FindSpark hosts virtual events as well. And so Teresa was live Instagramming her favorite tips and tagging FindSpark, tagging myself, tagging the speakers if they had an Instagram. So even though we're doing these virtual events, you can still create posts from those events and shout out the speakers. I think that's one of a great way to network, and it seems a little self-indulgent because I would say, you know, as practice, you could create a post saying, oh, I enjoyed the AMA event today with Emily Miethner, and you can tag me on LinkedIn, you can tag me on Twitter or Instagram. My handle is down there. I will 100% repost you or like your post, but doing this sort of these posts at events are a great way to network as well. And personal websites are a really great way to really own your story and what you want to do. If you are out of work, now is a great time to build a simple personal website. It does not have to be complicated, but it's a place that you can own what you've done in the past and what you want to do in the future and the work that is most relevant to that. There are a lot of free or inexpensive platforms. I would highly recommend investing in a custom URL that is, you know, yourname.com or something like that. And we have a lot of resources on FindSpark about creating an online portfolio if you're interested in that. And thinking about your brand consistently. So, you know, does your resume have elements that match your website that can also be seen on your LinkedIn? And that can be anything from colors to an icon to the words that you use to describe yourself. So one thing I challenge you to think about before the end of the day are what are 3 main keywords about you and your skills and the work that you want to do that you think are, you know, the most important words for people to know about you, and make sure those words are prominent on any social media platform that you have a profile on your resume and on your website. You know, so again, words, colors, graphic elements, these are all things that play a part of your personal brand. And, you know, connecting with people in different ways through different platforms. This is a long-term game. I've shared a lot very quickly, and we're going to jump into Q&A soon. But just doing this stuff consistently, experimenting and figuring out what you're comfortable with, and of course, what you enjoy. You might not enjoy certain platforms, and you might enjoy others. So focus on figuring out what you actually enjoy and put your energy there. Do not feel like you have to be on every platform all the time. It is not possible for anyone. And when you're thinking about who to reach out to, I recommend this short list: recruiters, people you admire, speakers, and people who are active. There's so many people out there, but this list of folks are going to be more likely to respond to you. Instagram is, again, also a great place to connect with people and find people if you're not using that platform already. And of course, think of networking as learning if you're especially interested in transitioning, and doing your research and talking to people is so important right now because of how COVID has disrupted so many businesses and industries. It's really important to stay up to date with what's going on. And the best way you can do that is by networking and connecting with other people. And when you're doing that outreach, I'm not sure if anyone saw this back in the day, but customizing that outreach is so important. You should not be able to send the same message to anyone because it should always be specific to that person you're reaching out to. That's going to be what gets you the best responses. And always saying thank you is a great idea. So whether or not you feel like this person you've connected with, say through an event like this, is relevant to you or could be useful, just say, hey, it was great to connect at this thing, right? And especially on LinkedIn, that message will stay there in that inbox. So if you ever connect in the future, they'll remember how you connected. This is my general follow-up strategy list, and I will say that it is more important than ever to be patient probably be more patient and sort of expand this timeline, but to still be persistent because of COVID. So don't think that COVID means that you should not reach out to people. You should still look to connect with folks during this time, but you have to be even more patient and persistent than normal because so many people have so much going on right now, more than we would ever know. And here are just some other ways to stay in touch with recruiters. You know, this goes for everybody though, once you connect with people. This is taken from the FindSpark Instagram account, which I highly recommend following. We post a lot of great useful tips like this. And I would say embrace being a leader and know that people, yes, there is some pressure to putting yourself out there more. It's gonna come with judgment, and that's okay. And just being okay with being judged and knowing that, you know, by posting what you want to and feels right to you, that's gonna attract a network for yourself that you can really enjoy and, you know, be supportive and support them back. I want to close with just a few 4 keywords that I think are really important before Q&A, is that everyone be extremely empathetic towards each other, more so than ever. That now is a time to be creative with how we're creating work, how we're getting work, and how we're thinking about work. And being resilient and flexible right now is also incredibly important because of the time that we're living in. So I am all about action items, and I'm allowed to give homework because I'm a professor, right? So this is a good slide to screenshot. It is really important to create actionable goals for yourself. So put time limits on those goals, put numbers next to those goals, because just saying that you want to build a better online presence is very overwhelming. So how can you break down big goals into little steps? So I would love to hear in the chat any little steps that you all plan to take because of this. Again, these are just examples. They're going to be different for everyone. And I know I've been seeing some great questions in the chat. So I'm going to start with those, but I'm also going to pull up the participant list actually, so if people want to ask the questions with their audio. And really quick, if you enjoyed the presentation so far, and I know I'm going to share a lot of other useful stuff in the chat, I would love if everyone could just take a minute right now to follow FindSpark on Instagram. That would be a great way to give me thanks. If you enjoyed the presentation, again, we share a lot of really useful stuff there that's relevant for everyone, no matter where you are in your career. So we're just at FindSpark. I don't care if you follow me on my personal account, but at FindSpark on Instagram, I would really appreciate that. And you can also sign up for FindSpark for free at findspark.com. Okay, so we have our first sample goal: become more active with my posts on LinkedIn and check out Twitter and Instagram. So Anna, I would encourage you to be even more specific. So what is more active on LinkedIn for you? Does that mean posting once a week or 1 to 2 times a week? So get even more specific than that and have some numbers so you can set some real once a week. Perfect. All right, so posting once a week is an excellent, excellent goal. All right, so I'm going to jump back to a few of the questions in the chat, but if you want to ask a question over audio, you can raise your hand. There's a little raise your hand button, and I'll call on you as well. I saw someone ask about ATS systems. Okay. Yes. Okay. So someone asked, is having more creative resumes potentially hurt you when you're applying through the applicant tracking system that scans resumes? So I would recommend not doing anything too crazy design-wise with your resume when you're submitting it online through an official portal, and definitely make sure you're submitting it in the format that they ask for, so docx or a PDF, right? And make sure that you send your resume first to other people to check that there's no wonkiness. But then if you want to have a more creative resume, that would be good to use, for instance, if you're emailing it to people or you're sharing it with people when you're at a networking event, even digitally, right, sending it via message. But I would keep your official resume that you submit online a little more simple to avoid potential formatting issues. All right, let's see. Here's a question. So a current college student, you love having a personal and private Instagram. Would you recommend creating a new public one for professional use? So, right, if you really love having that fun, private, personal Instagram, keep it going. Depending on your industry, it is something you might want to consider in terms of creating a professional one. And you don't have to use that one all the time. Instagram does make it easy to have multiple Instagram accounts all on your phone, so you don't have to log in and out of your personal and your private one. So for instance, if you're in a more creative industry, it could be a good idea, right? You can post things that you're working on, screenshots of things. You can get creative with it. For instance, a lot of my students at SVA, they create an Instagram for their thesis project. So maybe you have a certain project, you want to use Instagram as a place to have that project. Maybe you want to sort of just do it as an experiment. And it's something fun and creative. For instance, I know someone who does marketing, but they have an Instagram account for their calligraphy, and it's just all their calligraphy work that they do on the side. So definitely something to consider. And something else, I didn't mention TikTok at all, right? But for instance, considering something like TikTok, if you're in the music industry, or if you're in the entertainment industry, or if you're in the media business, right? Like if you want to work at, say, a company like NBC or Showtime or Hulu, these places are competing with TikTok in a way, right? So you might want to consider joining a platform that you're not going to be active on. You're not going to be trying to build up a network there. But, something like TikTok, for instance, I know is like huge in the music industry right now. And if that's something that you're considering trying to get into, you should have an understanding of what's going on there, and not just reading about it, but actually trying to use it, right? Maybe if you have kids that use it, having them show you around. Let's see. Any stats or aware of how many people are using Twitter or Instagram to find potential candidates? So recruiters are definitely using LinkedIn the most to source candidates, right? There's a specific tool called LinkedIn Recruiter that is a advanced version of LinkedIn that recruiters can use, which is why keywords and having a fleshed out profile is important, because they're searching by keywords. They might be saying, I also need someone who speaks Spanish or who works in this industry. So you really want to fill up that LinkedIn with any and all accomplishments and keywords and skills. I'm not sure that I don't have stats on how many recruiters are using, say, Twitter or Instagram, but it's really more about the networking, right? It's certainly, there's many recruiters who are on Twitter or Instagram who might be able to find your work, or you could connect with people through there. So again, I recommend checking these places out and looking for hashtags within your industry and that sort of thing to see how are people using these platforms. And you can find examples of people using every social media platform in every industry. And if you feel like you're in a more conservative industry, you might be able to actually use the platforms to stand out in an even bigger way if there's less people using it than, say, more creative or entertainment industries, that sort of thing. Wow. So someone here has 11,000 LinkedIn connections. Alan, wow, that's incredible. How can you best use it to your advantage? So, Alan, first of all, congrats on 11,000 connections. That's amazing. Do these things, right? Share resources within your industry. So, whatever industry you're in, I'm assuming those 11,000 people are interested in similar things. So can you become a person who is someone people love following because of the content that you share? And and this is an important thing to remember. Don't think, what is it that I think my followers want? And let me share that. Like, share what you like, share what you think is helpful, and the followers will come who appreciate that, right? So don't try to be someone you're not, right? Be who you are, share the kind of stuff that you want to share, feel comfortable sharing, enjoy sharing, and those people will appreciate. But yeah, I think becoming a resource and again being helpful, I think, is one of the best things that you can do. Shouting out other people. So just as a fun example, someone in my network, she is a recruiter who quit her job like right before COVID, and she is every week highlighting her unemployed colleagues from her past job. She's creating a LinkedIn post that says, 5 people you should hire this week, every week, highlighting people who are out of work to help them get work. That's helpful. That's so nice. So, what can you do during this time to be helpful? How can you use your skills, your resources to be helpful? I think that's a great way to think about your personal brand, is just think about how can you be helpful? And for those of you who think, well, how is talking about myself being helpful? Well, you all have skills. You're all really talented. And so part of being helpful includes saying, yes, this is what I can do. This is what I'm here for and how I want to be of service to a company, my community, and my network. Does anyone want to ask a question with their audio? Any brave souls out there? I see many of you are on the screen. Let's see. We got another question in the chat. I want to build the number of endorsements I have in LinkedIn. How should I go about doing that? One of the best way to get endorsements is to endorse other people, right? So when you endorse other people, they will get a notification that you did, and there's a really good chance that they will reciprocate and endorse you. You bring up a good point, Haley, because one thing that people don't know is that you can, so endorsements are connected to your skills. And by default, LinkedIn is going to put the skills that you have the most endorsements for at the top of your list visually. But maybe for some reason you've been endorsed for certain skills that you don't want people to see first. Maybe you want other skills to be first. You can go into your skills section and manually reorder your skills to make sure that the skills you want to be known for the most are at the top. So that's a really good action item, is to go to your skills list and put them in priority order that you want people to see. So endorse other people proactively in your network. And another great thing to do is to just ask, right? So you could email 20 of your closest friends, connections, colleagues, and say, hey guys, I'm hoping to build out my LinkedIn. I would really appreciate it if you could endorse me in skills you think I'm strong in. Here's the link to my profile, and I'm happy to do the same for you. And doing the same thing for recommendations. Now is a really good time to also ask for recommendations and to offer recommendations, which is the next step up from endorsements, right? Endorsements is just a click that says like, yes, I think they're good at this. An endorsement, a recommendation is that written out a longer piece of the profile that shows up more like a testimonial. Great questions from everyone, by the way. Let's see. Yeah, and actually Haley also mentioned, that they scroll through their feed and like content that appeals to them. So another great thing to do to engage with your network is not just to post, but engage with other people, right? Liking, commenting, tagging other people who might be interested, right? When people post something and say, hey, I'm looking for this, take a moment to tag someone if you know someone who might be a good fit. It doesn't happen all the time, but I actually got a good friend a new job because I tagged her in a job. Somebody posted an opening, and I didn't even really know this person well, but somebody posted an opening. I didn't even know if my friend was looking, but it sounded like something she'd be good at, and I tagged her in the comments of that post. 2 months later, she had that job, and that just came from taking that couple of seconds to be thoughtful and be helpful. So it's not going to happen all the time, something, great and big like that, but little actions will build up over time and help you build and maintain and grow your network. And you can choose in your LinkedIn privacy settings to let people see whether or not they can see your activity. So I'll just quickly show that because that's something people might not really know about, and I think it could be useful. But yes, there is a privacy setting. Let's see, I'm gonna reshare my screen where you can say, yes, I want people to be able to see my activity. And that's just a way for people to see, you know, let's see who you're engaged with. So right here, you can see my screen, it says activity. So right here, you can see what I commented on, you know, what I reacted to. So I make it so people can see my activity. And I can show you how it looks on a different profile. Let's see, I don't know this person. Let's see if I can see their activity. So I can see this person's activity. So one way actually to network and to find other people is you could go to your connections who you can see their activity, and you could see, oh, you know, what what are they commenting on? What are they liking? Right? So these are things that he's done. These aren't his posts. These are posts that he's commented on or liked or engaged with. But then you can also go just to that person's posts as well. So this is a good way to kind of expand your network and look for other people within your space, is seeing like who are people in your network already, what other folks are they engaging with. And now would be a good time. I don't know when they're going to cut us off, but if anyone has any other questions about the LinkedIn platform technically, because I'm in here and I'm showing you stuff, but please connect with me on LinkedIn. And I will say I'm very pleased because this is one of the first presentations in years where I had 2 people connect with me prior to the workshop. And that is also one of my big tips, is when you're going to attend a virtual event, connect with the panelists in advance. It's a great excuse, right? You send them a LinkedIn message that says, I look forward to connecting with you and hearing your talk. I can actually even, let's see, where are they? I think, is it Jamie? Oh, so Lorenzo. I don't know if Lorenzo's in the chat right now, but Lorenzo sent me this message. Let's just said, hey, I learned about your workshop. Just wanted to connect. So something simple like that, doing that before an event is a great way to connect with people. Oh, you're here. Hi, Lorenzo. Oh, okay. And somebody asked, for tech and startups, would you consider Medium a good platform for articles? I do think Medium, which is a blogging platform, is very popular within the tech community. And so that would be a good space to explore posting articles. And you can, you know, share a link to a Medium article on your LinkedIn and sort of cross post. You can also share the same thing on both. But yeah, Medium is definitely a platform I find that a lot of people in the tech world are using. Other platforms for blogging, you know, I have a personal website, which you guys can check out and use as an example. I don't blog super actively, but I have a blog on here. This is a platform with Wix.com. There's also Squarespace is another big one. So I create sometimes like recap articles of presentations I've done. This was, you know, talking about a fun example of being helpful and shouting out other people. I put an article on my site about the thesis films that were made by my students this year that won awards. And so, you know, this is a fun way to shout out and give kudos to my students. If any of you want some fun entertainment, these are some really awesome short films that my animation students made. So, you know, you might want to consider having a blog on your own website. So when you share that link, you're going to direct people directly to your website where they can learn more about you and how they can hire you or recruit you. Yes. Okay, yes. So as a budget conscious person, you know, does it look bad not to have a unique website domain? So first of all, Squarespace and Wix both have discounted website, like premium websites for students. And I would actually see if they have a free version for students now, because, and check with your school also. Many times schools and career centers will have special special codes for their students or alumni. So definitely everybody check with your career center. Even if you're a longtime alumni, a lot of times they'll still extend those discounts to alumni no matter how long ago you graduated. So check there. I don't think it's the worst thing if you can't, if you can't afford it, you can't afford it. You can still make a beautiful website with Wix on the free version. It'll just have the little Wix branding, but you can also, the cheapest thing you can do is you can buy the domain like yourname.com, and you can have it redirect to your long Wix link. But then you can at least share your domain, but then it'll redirect to the Wix site. So there's some kind of workarounds there, but if you can't afford it, it's not make or break. But it's, again, ask for a discount, see if you can get a freebie. And next time you have a birthday or a holiday and you feel like somebody wants to get you a gift, ask them to gift you a premium website. Any other questions? I hope I got a lot of LinkedIn requests. And actually, I'm going to show you one more thing while we're here, while we're on here. All right, so these are my LinkedIn requests. So people will see who's requested me so far. So what do we notice? I have 3 LinkedIn connections, and whose stands out the most of these 3 first LinkedIn connections that we see, in your opinion? If you had to put in the chat, whose request stands out the most? Anyone want to say who they think stands out the most? The one with the personal message, right? So always when you connect with someone, put in a personal message, because as you can see here, that really matters. You will literally take up more space, and I will be more likely to accept you because I'll see a note about why you're connecting or how we met. The other important thing to recognize here is, like I mentioned, your headline is very important, because that is the only thing I see in addition to your name and your profile picture when you make a connection with me. So this person, Eric, has a great headline because they're not just saying what they do, but they're saying what they're into. So they have these different keywords. And these M dashes here are a great way, or I don't know what they're called, but the bars are a great way to sort of separate the pieces of your headline. So have a good headline that tells me more about you, and send a custom message. The breakout room is about to close. So thank you so much. Again, I would love to connect with you all on LinkedIn. My email is just emily@findspark.com. And please follow FindSpark on Instagram and tag a friend. Send us to a friend if you found this useful. And I look forward to staying in touch with everyone who, send me your before and afters. I love seeing before and afters. You could DM them to me on LinkedIn or Instagram, or send me an email. I'm excited to see the changes that you all are able to make from this. And I will send my slides, or you'll get the recording, but I'll make sure they have my slides as well.